U issa nistieden lil Hans Jorgen Jorgen Gotcha biex jagħti l-speech tiegħu. I invite Hans to deliver the speech. Obviously, it will be delivered.
Our international secretary.
Our international secretary will be delivering his speech in English because obviously we don't expect him to speak Maltese, and he cannot expect us to understand the Danish language. So the common language is definitely English. So Hans, I invite you to deliver. I invite you to the podium and to deliver your speech.
Thank you.
As Secretary General. Thank you.
Gentlemen, it seems like all the ladies are enjoying the splendid spring weather we got now. So we'll just go on without the help, the assistance of these lovely creatures. The President of the United States, and by the way, most of other presidents of any nations, each and every year deliver the speech, the State of the Nation. We liberals, we are very modest people, so I only deliver the state of the world for you. So I will have a few words about what's happened the last 17 months since we had the last conference here, and trying to give some connections from the big world to this rather small country. Well, one of the most important things that happened since last time we met here was that the United States elected a new president, and this time it ended up being a democratic president, and everybody all over the world was so happy about his election, and everybody was expecting miracles from this poor man going in there. Now he's been sitting for 425 days in the Oval Office in the White House, and the changes are still remain to be seen. It is a tradition for American presidents that if it is a Democratic president, they tend to concentrate on the United States indoors, and if it is a Republican, they look more to the rest of the world. Just, shall we say, about 3 or 4 weeks after President Barack Obama went into office, 6 stupid Norwegian people sitting in the Nobel Prize Committee for the Peace Prize elected Barack Obama for the Peace Prize. That was 3 weeks after he was elected president. And he went this fall, he went to Oslo to collect the Peace Prize. And there was, by the way, just a week after, he sent 38,000 more soldiers to Afghanistan. I don't know if that's really the proper price, a peace price for that man. Okay, he's still got 3 years left, or almost, and he is a nice guy, and we hope there will be no big problems for him. At least he avoided, like his predecessor, George W. Bush, to be attacked by terrorists. He didn't have that problem. The big thing for President Obama in the United States was he was talking very much about the healthcare reform. So they were getting closer to the systems we got all over Europe, at least in the European Union. So everybody was entitled to have medical care, and not only the millionaires. And it looked like it would be a very smooth operation to get this through Congress and Senate. But unfortunately, one of the Democratic senators died. It was Senator Edward Kennedy. It was a new election, and there was a Republican coming in. So now Obama hasn't got the majority he wants, and it goes very, very heavy with this healthcare reform. And in the end, it will come out to be maybe nicer, but not as nice as it was supposed to be. Right now, I just leave the United States and think of the rest of the world, the world state of the world right now is incredibly fine, even if there are many people who wants to write that it's going very bad with the world and there'll be global warming, CO2, greenhouse effects, and all this stuff. We had by the way, in my old hometown, Copenhagen, we just had in December this very advertised climate summit called COP15, and that ended with a positive result from my point of view, because now we can concentrate on the real reasons that this planet has a pain in the climate. And we got proof that the United Nations and the organization is only a pompous, debating society of political amateurs with ambitions. Nothing came out of this conference. They ended with a joint statement that the maximum temperature is only allowed to rise by 2 degrees until year 2100. Very nice. We are telling the climate, don't go over 2 degrees. Nice to know, beautiful and non-committal. But there were fortunately no certain binding agreements to use billions and billions of Don Quixote's fight against CO2. So there's still a chance to find the real places where money is needed. The embarrassing and comical thing at COP15 was that the 119 top politicians they tried to convince each other and the rest of the world about global warming, while at the same time the snowstorm was raging outside the doors, and England was covered with snow, and the east coast of the United States was all covered with snow, and at the same time they were trying to convince us that it was a terrible global warming. We couldn't really feel it on our bodies. There is, for the last month or so, or a little more, there's been a thing in the European Union that has interested very much, and that is the problem between Libya and Switzerland and the efforts for different countries to drag other countries into this conflict. Originally, this conflict started with Muammar Gaddafi's son was stealing something or not behaving well in Switzerland, was arrested and later kicked out, and then suddenly some Swiss businessmen were held back in Libya, and after that the Swiss just said, okay, 180 Libyan businessmen and citizens are not allowed into Switzerland. Switzerland is a part of the Schengen area, Schengen Convention, which means that if you come into one country of this Schengen area, you're allowed to go to the other countries without passports. So Switzerland, of course, expected some kind of solidarity and unity within the Schengen area, which was not a very, very good thing for a couple of countries down here. Malta and Italy especially were very, very sad about this situation, because then they couldn't send their workers to work in Libya and earn some money. And of course it's a question of money. And there was 2 weeks ago, there was a plane landing in Libya with some Maltese workers and some Italian workers. The Italian workers were allowed to go into Libya, the Maltese workers were not allowed to go in there. And that only proves one thing for me, that the Italians have been there embarrassing themselves, again crawling for Mr. Gaddafi, just for pure money stuff. Well, if it was for that money, the strange thing is that yesterday there was a referendum over banning the bluefin tuna, I think it is here, bluefin tuna, all over the world. And it was, the first vote was an amendment moved by the EU that weakened the original proposal, but still endorsing the ban. That was defeated by 72 votes to 43. And the very strange thing for me is that Malta voted for banning the bluefin tuna fishing. And Malta is a country that probably is most dependable on the income of this fishing. Okay, it will not be banned now, so Malta can smile. But they were joining the EU in this voting. They felt the solidarity. But in the other matter with the visas and the passports, and Libya and Switzerland, Malta is constantly trying to get out and say, okay, you're welcome, or you're Libyans. I can't really see, it must be the same thing. Is it the money? Yes, it's the money about the tuna fish. Okay. Malta still shows some solidarity with the EU. But in the question of Libya and the workers there, no solidarity. They're trying to get around the corner just like the Italians and have a private agreement with Mr. Gaddafi, which is not a person I would never trust. No. But we might see that's one of the interesting and funny things going on down here in Malta right now. And there was in the end of in October last year, the Irish people had a referendum, over the EU treaty, the Lisbon Treaty, that should make it practical for the 27 countries to work together. There was the last country, no it wasn't, it was the next last country to accept this treaty, because after they voted yes, and by the way they voted yes with 66% for and 34% against, that was a very nice yes to the treaty. Then the Czech Republic president, who is a funny man, he decided to sign again because he couldn't be the only man in the whole Europe denying this treaty to go in. Okay, the treaty was in place, and then we had a chance. For the first time, for many, many years, we really had a chance to put some faces on. We made the job. This president for EU, practically the president, he is called High Representative for the European Council, and we invented a foreign minister, and the name is High Representative for Foreign Affairs. Funny names. But I made a little quiz here, because they pointed out two persons for this, two jobs. And that was a big chance for Europe just to get up and say, oh yeah, we are strong and we can negotiate with the US and Russia and China and India and all the big countries. Could anybody here in this audience tell me the name of the foreign minister of the European Union?
Barroso. Was it Barroso?
No, he is chairman of the commission. The foreign minister is an English Baroness, Catherine Ashton, and nobody knows at all. And nobody knows her, and I have ever heard of this woman before. And now she's put as foreign minister for European Union, which is supposed to be the primary financial market all over the world. We're still involved in the whole world. And then, okay, so we have an easier question. What's the name of the president of the EU now? The boss of the European Council. What's the name of him? Because he should go up besides Medvedev from Russia or Barack Obama. Who's the name of him? Oh, that was close to it. Yeah, there was Belgian Herman van Rompuy. And that's the most boring, grey person I've ever seen. And there was 3 weeks ago in the European Parliament, there was a funny situation. There was an English independent member, and by the way, sometimes he sounds right screwy, but he was standing up and saying he'd never seen so boring speech or the way of acting and so. And that was our big chance in the European Union to just come up with two persons. They are the strong ones. You could just look around, take anyone. Tony Blair, for example, was a close candidate for that job. So then they chose two completely unknown persons. And that, I think, is the worst thing that's happened in the EU for the last 17 months. We missed the chance, and I can't really see how we can, when we can change that. I think they have to sit there for at least 4 or 5 years. So. All in all, I think that the state of the world and the state of Europe is incredibly good. Even if we see all the negative in the media, everything that's negative that goes on page 1, all the positive things come on page 14. It's been a bloody cold winter for whole Europe except Malta. We have had a nice winter here. We had the cold winter last winter. It was the worst for 80 years.